but they have absolutely nothing to say about these white women. They make it seem like they're over there glory.
Charlotte, Cape Coral, Fort Myers, we're already seeing that inundation start. And, you know, here along the west central coast from, say, Manatee, Sarasota, Charlotte counties, expecting 9 to 13 feet of inundation above ground level. And that's that violent push of water inland from the Gulf of Mexico. We've had numerous tornadoes, as you mentioned, across portions of the Florida Peninsula today. That threat is going to continue tonight. We have a tornado watch in effect for central and southern Florida with several warnings in effect. Again, those warnings can be issued with pretty short notice. These tornadoes can form very quickly, so people in those areas want to make sure they can get their warnings in the middle of the night and wake them up to any danger in their area.
Is there any chance for any kind of material difference in the next 4 hours, that the storm could wobble again, that it could weaken more, or are you surprised by how fast it's been moving?
Well, it is moving a little faster, and it's probably going to make landfall here in the next few hours. But, you know, the big message is that the hazards are ongoing, and they're pretty much going to happen as they play out now, regardless of what might change with the storm in terms of a wobble here or there, or a weakening or less weakening. You're really worried about the potential for those hurricane conditions across much of the state of Florida. Everywhere you see in red here under a hurricane warning: Orlando, Palm Coast, Melbourne, Sarasota, Tampa. Going to be a widespread damaging wind event overnight and into Thursday from west to east across the Florida Peninsula. Widespread power outages, trees down, structural damage. So again, that's all coming regardless of whether the winds drop another 5 or 10 miles per hour or not. Right now, Milton's moving very quickly towards the Florida coast at about 17 miles per hour.
What would you say to people who have not evacuated right now?
Well, it's probably too late, but you should still try to get out if you're in one of those storm surge evacuation zones along the coast. Once that water starts to rise, we've seen people killed in previous hurricanes trying to get to their cars, trying to get out when it's too late. So don't become a statistic like that.
Director Brennan, thank you so much for being with us. Of course, the National Hurricane Center, a busy night ahead for you. I appreciate it. As mentioned, President Biden is set to speak any second now, live from the White House. He will give an update on Hurricane Milton. We're going to take you to an NBC News special report.
This is an NBC News special report. Here's Lester Holt.
Good day. We're coming on the air with breaking news here in Florida, where we are already feeling the powerful effects of Hurricane Milton, a massive Category 3 storm closing in on the state's west coast. President Biden is making remarks on Hurricane Milton. We'll take those in just a moment, but first a quick update. Right now, we think landfall is expected just hours from now here in the Tampa Bay area. But Milton's outer bands are already pounding the coast and will bring winds of at least 120 miles an hour. Flooding expected to be, frankly, catastrophic, with life-threatening storm surge up to 13 feet in some areas. Earlier today, Milton spawned a tornado outbreak that ripped across the southern section of the state called Alligator Alley. From Naples in the west across to Fort Lauderdale. The forecast for the hurricane is nothing short of terrifying. Millions have been ordered to evacuate. Let's go now to the president as he speaks.
Good evening. Within a few hours, Hurricane Milton is expected to make landfall on the west coast of Florida, the western coast of Florida. Already we're seeing impacts from the storm, including significant winds and heavy rain. And there's also been frequent and widespread tornado warnings throughout the day. And they're continuing and expected to expand as Milton moves overland, including a few that have already touched down in South Florida. Currently, Milton is a Category 3 with wind speeds up to 120 miles per hour. But no one should be confused. It's still expected to be one of the most and worst destructive hurricanes to hit Florida in over a century. You know, both the heads of the National Hurricane Center and the National Weather Service made it very clear in conversations I've had with them earlier today. Milton still carries incredible destructiveness, can wipe out communities, can cause loss of life. Storm surge is still expected to be up to 13 feet. So I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to listen to local officials and follow all the safety instructions they give. At this point, evacuation is probably difficult. So I encourage people to look for safer shelter. Sometimes moving just a few miles can mean the difference between life and death. We've already approved emergency declarations for Florida. We have thousands of federal personnel on the ground, We're staged and are ready to go. We have 20 million meals, 40 million liters of water. At my direction, the Secretary of Defense, Austin, has pre-positioned search and rescue teams, helicopters, and high water speed vehicles as close to the storm as possible, so they're ready to conduct life-saving missions. And the administrator of FEMA will be on site tonight in Florida, and the state's emergency operations center. Both Administrator Criswell and I will be in constant contact with state and local officials in the hours ahead. Once the storm hits, we're going to work with state officials to clear debris, restore power, and do it as fast as possible. The Army Corps of Engineers will pump out water and decrease flooding. We've already directed the Department of Defense to be ready to provide active duty service members to support Florida after the storm surge if Governor DeSantis requests the help, which I expect he might, just like we did in North Carolina. I have surged over 1,000 U.S. Coast Guard personnel to perform search and rescue missions and reopen the port of Tampa as soon as possible. Now, I want to reiterate a point I made clear earlier today to the folks who have been impacted by Helene. This impact, and will be now impacted by Milton. Over the last few weeks, there's been reckless and irresponsible and relentless promotion of disinformation and outright lies about what's going on. It's undermining confidence in the people in Florida. An incredible rescue and recovery work that has been undertaken. Literally, there are thousands of fellow Americans who are putting their lives at stake and putting on the line to do the dangerous work that needs to be done now. And it's harmful to those who most need the help. Quite frankly, these lies are un-American, and there is simply no place for them. Not now, not ever. Former President Trump has led this onslaught of lies. Assertions have been made that property is being confiscated. That's simply not true. They're saying people impacted by these storms will receive $750 in cash and no more. That is simply not true either. They're saying that money needed for these crises are being diverted to migrants. What the heck are they talking about? Stop it. It's outrageous. It's just not true. Now the claims are getting even more bizarre. Marjorie Taylor Greene, the congresswoman from Georgia, is now saying the federal government is literally controlling the weather. We're controlling the weather. It's beyond ridiculous. It's so stupid. It's got to stop. Let me close with this. As difficult as these days and weeks have been, we've seen incredible courage by so many of our fellow Americans. I want to thank all the first responders for running toward danger instead of away from it, for saving lives and making a difference. FEMA personnel risking their lives, climbing on hillsides to reach people who cut off by Helene. Army National Guard flying through the gale wind force that it's amazing what they're doing. Firefighters lifting collapsed wood and metal in an attempt to see if there are survivors, any survivors under the debris, risking their lives. Coast Guard teams rappelling from helicopters to rescue people and risking their own lives. And there are countless friends and neighbors who have sacrificed for the greater good. Volunteers leaving their own families behind to help search for someone else's family. Fellow Americans looking out for one another. That's America at its very best. That's who we are. So my final message tonight is to the people of Florida and all the impacted states. We've got your back. We've got your back. And Kamala and I will be there for as long as it takes to rescue, recover, and rebuild. May God bless you all, and may God protect those serving in the eye of this storm on behalf of our nation. Thank you.
Why do you think Trump is spreading misinformation? Why do you think President Trump has sent testing kits to President Putin during the height of the pandemic? Do you have a comment, sir? Why do you think Trump is
un-American?
Why do you think Trump is spreading misinformation?
I don't know. I simply don't know. You can speculate, but I just find it. I've used the phrase more than I've used it ever in my whole career. Un-American. It's un-American. It's not who the hell we are. What are they talking about?
Sir, have you considered calling him and asking him to stop doing that? To stop spreading this?
Oh, come on.
Mr. President, does Governor DeSantis need to take Vice President Harris's calls?
All I can tell you is I'm talking to Governor DeSantis. He's been very gracious. He's thanked me for all we've done. He knows what we're doing, and I think that's important.
Can you say that Florida has everything it needs for this storm?
President Biden taking a few questions after speaking to the press and the American people about the status of the response to what is unfolding before our eyes here, Hurricane Milton. These are some of the pictures you're seeing out of Tampa, where we are right now. The president also offering a full-throated rebuttal to some of the unsubstantiated rumors about the government's response and rescue and recovery operations. The president showing he's deeply exacerbated by some of what has been reported. In the meantime, he's also, of course, talking about what the government faces right now as this storm begins to build speed. Still a few hours off the Florida coast, but on a track that will take it really to the central heart of Florida. Let's go to Al Roker, who is watching the forecast. Al, can you march us through the evening?
Okay, Lester, here's the deal. And with each progressive model run of this, we've actually seen the path move a little further north, closer to Tampa, St. Pete. Now, currently, it is a Category 3 storm, as you mentioned, but again, as I like to, do not pay attention to the category. It's the impacts of this system that are going to make the difference. 120-mile-per-hour winds. It's moving northeast at 17 miles per hour. Tornado watches from Key West to Daytona Beach right now. And again, you can see this system really getting itself wrapped up. Makes landfall sometime this evening. We're thinking 8, 9 o'clock maybe to between then and midnight. But the forward motion of that keeps those winds actually pushing in storm surge at an even greater level. And then by early tomorrow morning, it's midpoint in the state, passing over Orlando, and then out to sea by Thursday afternoon. In the meantime, the storm surge, the expected peak is going to be from midnight to 5 a.m. from Sarasota down to Boca Grande, probably 9 to 13 feet, 8 to 12 feet going to the north, including Tampa, and another 3 to 5 feet as the storm exits and makes its way out into sea. Storm surge, what is it? It's that wall of water on top of a high tide that starts to move inland as those normal sea levels rise. The wind pushes that water. Water finds its way. The storm surge, of course, deadliest threat from the hurricane. The other impacts we worry about, the wind. We're talking about now wind gusts in Sarasota, 127 miles per hour. That is going to blow out windows and high rises, and in fact, power outages from Sarasota to right across the central part of the state could last for weeks, if not days. And then as far as the rainfall is concerned, we are talking about a high risk, Lester, from the eastern part of the state across Orlando down to Sarasota. We could be looking at 18 inches of rain or more, but generally about 5 to 10 inches of rain. That is going to be catastrophic as far as infrastructure is concerned, roads washed out. And again, that storm surge, the thing that we are most concerned. Already Fort Myers seeing a few feet of storm surge already. Lester?
All right, Al, thanks for that update. Let's go to Tom Yanis in Sarasota. Al mentioned Sarasota. Tom, what are you seeing there?
Good evening, Lester. The conditions have dramatically gotten worse over the last hour here in Sarasota. We're feeling tropical storm force wind gusts right now. We're nowhere near the hurricane force wind just yet, but it's picking up. You can hear it maybe in the background. You can see the palm trees here starting to move a little bit. The major concern here, besides those hurricane force winds, of course, the storm surge that Al was talking about. We're going to be at a high level tonight as we broadcast throughout this storm. But here in Sarasota, they're waiting for that massive storm surge, that historic storm surge that will take out the first floor, possibly the second floor of buildings around here. There's a lot of boarded up doors. This entire area has been evacuated. In fact, to the barrier islands, which you can no longer get access to, they've cut off the water there to send a signal that if you stay on those barrier islands and the landfall is right over Sarasota, you will not survive this storm. So the situation here is critical. On top of all this, every hour or so, we get these warnings about tornadoes. So Floridians are on edge right now because regardless of where you live in the state, you are scared tonight because there are tornado warnings and there's this massive hurricane coming through. Luckily, it feels like people heeded those evacuation warnings. There was miles of traffic for days, which is actually a good sign. A lot of the gas stations did run out of fuel. It was hard to find fuel in these last final hours. Hotels were booked up. But again, those were all signs that people were trying to get out, which was the right thing to do. And right now it's a waiting game. We did have that breaking news, the earlier landfall, so it should hit around the Sarasota area, maybe just north of us a little earlier. We'll know over the next several hours what's going to happen here. For now, Lester, I'm going to send it back to you and go inside.
All right, Tom, you guys hunker down, and as we continue to watch this here in Tampa, you can see the trees behind me. Mainly the story right now here, besides the wind, is some heavy rain. They're expected to get a lot of it here. I say we are expected to get a lot of it here. Let's go to Sam Brock now. He is in Fort Myers, Florida. What's the picture there, Sam?
Okay, all my Queen Kings and things. I didn't do any interruptions. I wasn't a chatterbox. I just wanted to kind of bring you a little bit of the news that's right here going on in Florida. So I'm about 2 hours away from this Tampa, Sarasota area. For right now, I'm okay. It's very, very windy out, rainy out. We haven't lost any power or anything just yet. So I'll bring you another update. This actually is what the Queen is going through right now. But either way it go, for those that do watch, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for joining. Thank you for being a part of the Queen King and things. This is your girl, Queen Dee Dee, where Dee Dee said it. Like, share, comment, subscribe. And I'll do it. If you don't do anything else, I say get to know me. But I am going to try to bring you one more good video. Y'all better get ready for this one. It's going to make you say, oh, I thought I was done. I guess I wasn't. See you next time.